Welcome, everyone, to the Trailblazing Leader podcast. I am excited that you're here today, and it is my goal to bring you insights and wisdom from some of the most exceptional business leaders today. Leaders who have a proven track record of outstanding business growth and a deep passion for attracting and developing great talent. During each episode, my guests will be sharing their expertises and stories and innovations that cover a range of trailblazing leadership topics, such as their philosophies of leadership and of talent development, how they got to their role, who inspired them, and the art of creating an organizational culture which attracts and retains great talent, plus what they recommend for up-and-coming trailblazing leaders. So please stay with us to the end of today's program, where I'll be sharing how you can get a special leadership gift from us. So let's get right into it, and let me introduce today's special guest. I'm extremely honored to have Matt Disher, a U.S. Marine veteran, join us today. He's an executive at Cushman and Wakefield, the global commercial real estate firm that manages over 5 billion square feet of property. Now, Matt leads the military and veterans programs. His leadership and his military and veteran program has been instrumental in Cushman and Wakefield's success at integrating military personnel into the workforce and demonstrating the value of military skills in corporate environment. He's responsible to oversee the initiatives of recruiting and retaining and developing the military personnel within the organization. He's part of Cushman and Wakefield's diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and his success is evidenced by the fact that the company has won in 2024 the Military-Friendly Top 5 Employer Award for the 6th consecutive year in a row. That is quite an accomplishment. One of the things that I have high respect for Matt is his personal philosophy on time. What he says is, it's the one thing you never get more of. You can have more money, more stuff, more vacations, more clothes, but you don't get more time. How true that is. He says, use it wisely. Build a life where you love what you do to work. Work with great people and get to spend the time doing important things that matter. Something that Matt has committed his life to. I saw a photo of Matt in the backyard with his wife and son watching the eclipse. Clearly, Matt is about spending his time wisely. And with that, Matt, welcome to today's episode. So Matt, as we talked about, I really appreciated and read your quote about time. And and the fact that you don't get more time. You want to do the things that you love. You want to do it with people that you love. You want to do important things. And clearly, you've committed your life and your time to doing important things, not only with your family and for your family, but for others from the military. So would you share with our audience your journey to becoming a talent leader with this focus in helping our military become engaged and employed and effective in the corporate workforce?
Yeah, it's a great question, Russell, and I appreciate this question because the best way to start answering this is that it's personal to me. I joined the Marines right out of high school. My mother was a teacher, elementary school teacher, and then a teacher at a university local to me. My father was a business leader in market research. And I had these options to do different things, and I wanted to join the military. If you go back in history, all the men in my family before me had joined the military as well. So I felt it my obligation, but also I was not ready to take the next step and just go sit in more classroom time. I wanted to go experience something much larger than that. I knew I'd come back to college one day. And in that experience, I joined the Marines as a combat engineer, where effectively my job became doing explosives and shooting guns. I was attached to an infantry unit most of the time.
Yeah, what a fun job for a young man,
right? It's a lot of time in the water. We did some cool stuff on boats in the middle of the night in the ocean, and stuff that kids are playing on video games and watching in the movies today. I got to live and experience that for a number of years. But what I found when I came home was that my resume reflected shooting guns and blowing things up. And and I didn't know how to sell my soft skills. I had leadership. I'd stood at the planning table alongside of executive leaders in the military, and I'd brought to them, what my Marines can bring to the fight, and there were logistics and budgets and things like that, but I never really applied those to what I was searching for on the outside. And so for a number of years, I had a rough go at it, trying to figure out what I was supposed to be doing next, as many people leaving the military do. So, the best way to answer the question is that I take it personally. It was a hard transition coming out of a very aggressive military culture back to a civilian world that, in the peak of wartime, didn't largely understand where we had been or what we had done. And then we didn't, as veterans, didn't understand how we were supposed to apply those things to the corporate world or to whatever our next steps were going to be. So I have been afforded the ability to improve everything that we see around us, right? Everything that this population experiences, I now have my hands on, or I am setting the example or setting best practices. In some cases, I'm teaching other companies how to do these types of programs in their respective organizations. So I have a lot of influence to be able to take what was personal to me and turn this into a largely effective business strategy for many companies that are engaging this same type of program today.
Wonderful. So I want to ask two questions following up on that. The first is, what do you do to help the veterans understand the differential between being in the military and corporate environment? If you had to simplify, and say, hey, look at the first 5 things I tell them or educate them on, that's going to be my first question. And then my second question is going to be about teaming. But let's start with the first question, which is, where do you start to give them a comparison and contrast that give them context to what they're leaving and where they're going to?
Yeah, I generally use an analogy about the military to explain this to people on the outside of the military, but I think it also applies for people who are currently serving, that you're inside of a room and you see, you live and work and play alongside of other people that are dressed like you and they behave like you and they have the same operational orders and the same culture, et cetera. And you're inside of that room, and then one day that door opens up and you are asked to leave that room. And you have to leave all of this stuff behind, all of the cultural nuance, how you've been dressing and what time you've been waking up. It all gets left behind in this room, and you have to come out into the corporate world or the civilian world, and now you have to integrate there. The best way I tell people to start imagining that is, the military, not all of it, but a lot of it is. It's very clear-cut, culturally defined. It's very stated culture. You know what you expect every day. You know what you're supposed to wear. You know what time you're supposed to wake up. The standard operating procedures are written down and implemented and trained and drilled, et cetera. And I explain the civilian space as the exact opposite. So take everything you learned that made you very successful in the military in terms of engaging a very diverse population. You think about leadership in the military, you are leading among people that are from all walks of life, and in some cases all around the world, right? So it's not just I'm leading people that are in my community down the street and we all play the same sports and look the same, right? In the military, it's people, it's a mishmash of people that got put into a unit and an element, and you are trying to motivate those people to accomplish a common goal. And you are managing logistics. Again, you're managing personnel, you're managing the ups and downs in their personal lives and trying to get them operationally ready to deploy as a military element. If you can do all of that in the military, you can very easily apply those same rules and standards to the civilian world. Because what I have found is there are a lot of very well-run companies and organizations out here in the civilian space, but at a ground level, and I use the term ground level, just the management at the front, the leadership that are out there running businesses out in the world, companies suffer to find good, solid leaders who can be more than managers, right? They have to be influential, transformative leaders to motivate people from all walks of life to go accomplish the same type of goal. So I answer that first question really with that, take all of the hard skills, all of the soft skills, all the things you learned in the military, throw out the rule book, and then start from scratch and wherever it is that you're going in the civilian space and learn their standard operating procedures and go apply what you did well in the military to the civilian space.
So I want to build upon it because I got a couple things. One is in the civilian space or corporate world, the manager of tomorrow or today has to be a human manager. You're not just managing tasks, you're managing people. And so, as you say, from the military, here you are as an inspirational leader, inspiring people with a large range of values and perspectives to accomplish a common mission. But the beauty is the mission is extremely clear, the orders are clear, and the alignment is there. Conversely, in the civilian and corporate world, a lot of that time, that becomes a mushmash. I'm not totally clear on the mission. I'm not totally aligned. And I think the other aspect is that in military, it's a requirement. It's what we do. In corporate, people feel I can or I can't. I can opt in, I can opt out. I could be engaged or I could be disengaged. And so I wanted to talk about leading by influence and influencing and becoming a great team leader, a human leader that inspires a team. What is that leap over, and why is that so effective for someone from the military to enter into corporate world?
Yeah, you look at the armed forces in general, and this is not to deter anybody who might listen to this and say, well, why would I join the military if you've said all these things, right? I was sleeping on the ground for weeks at a time. I was getting paid very minimally in some cases, right? My body ached. I had to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning in Japan and run 7 miles in sweltering heat. Why in the heck would we want to go do this, right? That's what we subjected ourselves to in the armed forces. But concurrently, if you can motivate young men and women who come from all these different backgrounds to go run 7 miles on the sweltering heat, to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, to using a very dramatic example of this in combat, to charge a machine gun nest for what? It's full of enemies. What are we going to do with that, right? To stare down the enemy in the face of danger, to run toward the sound of gunfire, to fly an aircraft into a dangerous situation. These are not people that are being paid. These aren't pro athletes, right? They're not being paid millions of dollars in endorsements. They're being paid in some cases very minimally with great benefits and things like that. But they're being paid fairly minimally, and most of them are there to accomplish a mission or to work alongside of a team. So if you are able to motivate, again, these diverse groups of people from all walks of life, from around the world, from around our country, from East Coast to West Coast, North and South, then you can certainly manage and motivate people in the corporate space who are in many cases incentivized or rewarded to come to work and do their jobs and receive paychecks, large paychecks, and maybe have a growth curve that leads them to executive ranks one day. They can own a house and a car and live the American dream. So I think that that's really,
let's go underneath that, because how do you create the influence to face danger, in military, there's a sense of purpose and mission and vision and values. How is that? What is it in the military? And then how does it apply in corporate America when we're trying to have the same sort of purpose, mission, vision, and value for inspiration? So I want to do this contrast because I'm not going to charge to danger unless I'm inspired. So what is the inspiration, and then how does it transfer?
It comes down to trust, I think, primarily. Trust and the ability to contribute to one's success, and in a lot of cases, it's recognition. People live for the recognition, especially in the corporate space. In the military, you're not necessarily getting the recognition, right? You're not going to charge that machine gun nest, and then you might win a medal later on, but you're not thinking about that in the heart of the moment. It's trust. Leaders have to be more than, I discern the difference between a manager and a leader. A manager manages operations. Anybody can manage operations and plug numbers into a computer and manage process. Not everybody can lead. Not everybody can generate trust among their teams.
Great.
And really what that comes down to is trust, especially in the military, but in the civilian space is doing what it is necessary to knock down the barriers to ensure that your people can get their job done and they can be successful so that they can receive that recognition. It's, in some cases, there's a lot more that goes into it than that, but in some cases it's as simple as building trust among them and letting them know you're going to crawl in the dirt alongside them. You're going to protect them from the bad and harbor the good stuff, right? And make sure that they're able to come to work every day and earn their paycheck and continue to grow and develop.
And you want to know something? It's the same thing in corporate America. When you read Patrick Lencioni, he wrote the book, The Five Dysfunction of the Team, or now his new book, The Five Behaviors of a Cohesive Team. It starts with vulnerability-based trust, that I can say what I need, I can speak without being judged, and I know you're going to be there to help me, just exactly what you said, knock down the roadblocks, give me the resources I need so we can accomplish the mission together. Now in corporate America, I think people they have a chance to vote, they have a chance to say their opinion, they have a chance to agree. I would suspect in the military, the mission's given. Hey, we're going. I'm going to inspire you, but we're all going. That debate's already happened somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. And to quote the military, and again, this works out here in the civilian space as well. No plan survives enemy contact. So yes. You have to be willing to build this plan and then adapt as soon as it all comes apart. I've heard these things on the internet before. They say, having a plan B or having a plan C indicates that you're intending to fail plan A. And it's like, no, it just means that you simply have to take another route because there are variables here that may be underlying that you're unaware of, right? So you have to be willing and able to crawl in the mud with your people and ensure their success at almost any cost. And to your point, protect them from some of the negativity that may come their way and ensure that they can get their job done and you're absorbing the bad stuff and giving them the good, right?
Right. They don't need to be hit by corporate politics. And like as in the military, they don't need to be hit by a bullet. So,
right.
This aspect of I'm there with you, by your side. I trust you know how to do your job, but I'm here to let you know that I'm with you. I'm supporting you. I'm here to take care of you. And what you're telling me is when you do that in the military, you do it in corporate America, that's the fundamental of trust building.
It is. It is, absolutely.
So now let's come to Cushman and Wakefield. How many military veterans are employed or have you helped? And importantly, how do you balance the profitability goal of the organization and the development of talent goal? People versus profit, development versus we can't afford it right now. We got to make our margins and that sort of thing. Let's get into your application in the corporate world.
Yeah. Yeah. Inside of our company, we have a total veteran headcount of about over 1,300 veterans across the business.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you.
Of course. One of your questions was how many veterans have we helped or influenced? I'd say to the tune of tens of thousands in the course of maybe hundreds of thousands in the course of a handful of years here. And that's simply because, as you know, we can't hire everybody, right? So we're out there in the world doing these different engagements and events, giving the best advice we can. And in some cases, in most cases, statistically, most companies are not hiring most of their applicants, right? So we have this very large network of other organizations, other companies that really have an interest in capturing the military, post-military talent. We'll hire 400 to 550 or 600 veterans a year, upwards of 100 military spouses in a year as well. So we're not only supporting the military and veteran population, but also their respective families. There are hundreds of thousands of military spouses in the military community. And if you can support the family, you're effectively supporting the entirety of the mission, right? People will stay in the military longer and develop their careers longer in the military because then they don't feel like they have to leave to go accomplish something else with their family, right?
Yes.
So the balance...
Are you under pressure with So do you have a profitability pressure, which is, hey, Matt, we can't develop talent right now. I got to take away the talent budget, the talent development budget, because it's just an incremental expense to make the margin. Where do you deal with people versus profit? And does that come up in your business?
It's a conversation that happens. Absolutely. What we've done inside of this program is we've come to the realization that not only are we getting the best talent in the world from the armed forces, this is 150,000 people leaving the military every year. They are some of the most educated, experienced, and diverse men and women on earth. So right off the bat, we have story after story of people leaving the armed forces, plugging into our organization, and then effectively being promoted very quickly a handful of times in a short period of time, servicing our clients a little bit more. So what we're doing is we're tying in the people and talent element to the profitability of the organization. Most of these jobs we're hiring these people into are client facing or on a client property or campus.
Yeah. Yep.
We're one of the largest commercial real estate services companies in the world. So we're managing 5 billion square feet of property around the world.
Yes.
And that means having the right engineer coming out of the Navy on a skyscraper downtown, that person can make or break the relationship between us, the company, and that client who owns or manages that property or that building. So, there is an intersection there. I'll tell you, our program is unique because what we found is that our clients have programs like this too. And some of the companies that we've pursued in business also have programs like this. In some cases, the pursuit themselves it's a person who has themselves served in the military, and having a program like this and having the results that we have had actually intersects very well with how we develop business. So we unapologetically do say that we bring this same conversation to the table when we're pitching new business, because you walk into a room to talk to 100 people and you ask how many have served in the military, and 5% of them will raise their hand. You ask how many of them have family members or close friends that have served in the military, and almost the entire room raises the hand. So it's not just that we're catering to a small percentage of the population that's served in the military. This is an entire society. It's an entire community of people with all of their affiliated family members and friends. And we recognize that in business, if we engage that same prospect, right, we engage this idea that we have this program and we are running it. It's a world-class program, top ranked in the United States. By the way, we'll share all of our best practices with anybody who asks.
I'm really glad. We're going to come. I want to make sure we give that its time.
Yeah.
So we're going to come. I want to hear about that.
Sure.
Let's just build on where you're coming from, which is, do you find the veterans have a hard time communicating their value when applying, or is there a subconscious bias among recruiters and hiring authorities that they don't understand the application? And so there's a need for this education to allow a veteran their fair shot at a position.
Yes. Yeah, there are fundamental differences in somebody with a 10 or 20 year military career applying for a job in the corporate space, because that person with 10 or 20 years in the military is probably going to have had 10 or 15 different types of jobs on their resume, right? The language they use, the acronyms they use, things like that are going to be completely different from what a civilian recruiter sees on a day-to-day basis. So jobs in the armed forces are not unlike the jobs that we have out here. It's just sometimes they're called something different. So we have to have a little bit of training and orientation to, it's a 50-50. The recruiter and the hiring manager evaluating the resume they have to understand what they're looking at and how that might play, the strengths might play into their respective position or job, or how they're going to play on that team. The candidate, just the same. The other 50% of this is the candidate understanding how they need to sell themselves. So acronym soup on a resume full of military jargon does not work when a 26-year-old recruiter who has no military experience is looking at it.
Yeah, so you almost need a translator, right? It's almost like going from English to French or French to Spanish or whatever. This is from alphabet soup to corporate America work.
Absolutely.
I know how to lead people.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about your passion for continuous learning. Mm-hmm. And what you're doing at Cushman and Wakefield to inspire that. I'm a big fan that you can never learn enough. How is that happening in the business, and what are you doing to keep that going?
We have multiple learning and development teams here inside of the company that focus on their respective silo of L&D and their respective silo of operations. In my world, having to do specifically with military and veterans, it is the part of what we just discussed, right? Part of it is education of managers and recruiters on what they're looking at to bring in this top talent that they might often overlook. Part part of that is training and getting our candidates that are coming in plugged into the resources that are available to them as well. So it's making sure that they have mentorship ability, they have the ability to connect to executives and people maybe that are doing their same job, they've had a long-term career inside of the organization, or maybe to explore other avenues of the company. So in a lot of cases, anecdotally, my team and I spend our time either identifying the resources or training programs that somebody might come into through the DoD SkillBridge program, for example, coming out of the military, plugging into our organization, or just simply making introductions to the resources or people that they need to know along the way to continue to develop their careers.
So you are, in essence, a facilitator, navigator, coach, and mentor to help everyone advance their careers and make sure they're getting the information they need among your cohort that you work with. I want you to describe what is the program that you could share with other talent leaders, recruiters, chief people officers, because I think you said as we want to share everything, it helps the entire American population. What is that, and how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, our program is this. It's a military and veterans program specifically. We serve three pillars: people, brand, and business development. Our primary focal point is people. It's an element of our team and operation that it attracts tens of thousands of new veteran applicants, thousands of veterans leaving the military each year, military spouses, people who want to come explore careers inside of our organization or enter our network. I mentioned before that we're servicing some of the largest clients, some of the largest companies in the world, and we're working alongside of them as well. So if I take a really good candidate and can't do anything with them inside of my company, I can share them with my entire network. So networking is piece
Wonderful.
number one there.
Okay.
The brand element is this. We are we're effectively a marketing team that is disguised as a bunch of recruiters. We're a commercial real estate services company, so we're not a consumer brand. You can't buy anything from us as a consumer out of the street, which leaves us at somewhat of a disadvantage when we're attracting top talent. We're not the store down the street that you're familiar with. You're not ordering something from us online. So we have to really be very good at reaching the population we're trying to reach and putting social media and things in people's inboxes and stuff like that. A lot of it's just organic outreach, right? Storytelling. And then the business development piece is this. It's that our clients and some of the companies that we pursue and 10% of U.S. businesses are run by veterans or they're veteran-owned businesses, right? These are our clients. These are the organizations that we service. And so we have mixed all these things together inside of our respective program, which keeps us from being just a cost center, right? We're out here generating new business relationships. We have developed best practices that we share in documents in detail or at a very high level for those who request it. Quite frankly, they can get in touch with us by reaching out to me on LinkedIn and or any of the other number of events that we're constantly involved with alongside of the different partners with whom we're involved.
Okay, so Matt Disher on LinkedIn, he's there. And for every chief people officer, let's be sure that you make an extra effort and include the incredible talent of our military veterans, because they know what leadership is, they know what inspiring leadership is. And I'm just, so grateful that you give your time and you've made this commitment. We're going to finish with two questions. One is, what do you see as the emerging trends from your chair that's happening with developing talent? And the last question will be is, what advice do you have for up and coming trailblazing leaders in the people space? So let's start with, what trends are you witnessing out there? What do you see beyond just this aspect?
Yeah, when I think about trends, I would say that one of the big trends that we're seeing in our respective industry is it's the return to office, right? It's the collaboration of people. It is, in the post-COVID world, it's getting people back to that collaborative environment where they can continue to develop. I think some people do very well in remote or hybrid work, but what it leaves out is the ability to sit down with the team and be face-to-face with team and the regular work environment. And I think that is going to be detrimental to address in terms of how people develop their careers respectively. At Cushman Wakefield, we're producing thought leadership on how to make more inviting office spaces and workspaces to make people want to come back and engage. I think that inevitably the advent of remote work and virtual meeting space is going to be something that we're simply going to have to face in the future. So remote work is here to stay. It's just a way of finding people to collaborate and engage with each other on a more effective level, even if they're going to be hybrid. You think about this. Years ago, you had to hire somebody who was there in your market, in your office, and you left out 99% of the United States, for example, because if you couldn't get somebody to move, then you only had the population there around your office. So we've changed that. I think in our industry, we're in an industry where no matter how much virtual work can be done, we're managing properties and facilities. We have to have people on board. We have to have people client-facing, shaking hands with the client, visible to the client. And so what we have to do, as all organizations have to do, is find new and innovative ways to continue to engage people. I think that the trends are this. We saw the great turnover during COVID. People have realized that they can go pursue new jobs. If they're not getting what they want right at this moment, it's the right now generation, right? I'm going to go find the next thing, go make some more money, instead of sticking around and being able to understand what their next moves might be. And this is tying it back to the military. Military does a really good job of letting you know this is how long it's going to take you to get promoted, and here's how you get promoted. Here's what your next step looks like. Corporate America needs to very clearly figure that out, because that's what's going to cause people to pick up and leave. So those are some of the trends. I think it's effectively dealing with remote and hybrid work and making sure that people can continue to develop and grow their respective careers. What was the second?
Yeah, so we'll call it. And so what I'm hearing is you're at the hub of real estate, and what you're saying to chief people officers is forcing people to return to work is not the strategy. The strategy is taking the benefit of allowing you to hire from around the world or in the nation, out of your marketplace, recognizing that there's need to get people together, because when humans are together, they can collaborate. And there's a both and, not an either or, that our workplace is going to evolve. That's right. Kind of what I'm hearing, and you're feeling that as the pulse.
Yeah, I think forcing people, using those terms, forcing people, right? That automatically has a very negative effect, right? So it's what you're really trying to do is lead people to want to engage and collaborate. You're trying to set up the conditions.
You're influencing, right?
You are. Yeah. You're setting the conditions that make people want to come into the office and want to collaborate and continue to contribute. And that is wholly what keeps people staying and developing in their respective careers. People work for managers and teams. They're not working for company names. And what we found with the younger generation right now, they're not always working for the paycheck either. That might be a secondary or tertiary thing that they're attracted to. They might want a little bit more flexibility, but the ability to contribute to bigger projects or have executive exposure, things like that. So
yes. So that's the research, and I see the same research. I'd leave my job because I wasn't clear on my career development. I'd leave my job because my manager wasn't taking care of me. I leave my job because I was not connected to the organization. And this generation says, I want a work-life balance. I want it all, and I'll give you my all. But we have to find the all. All right, we're going to conclude with one last question, Matt, which is up-and-coming talent leaders. What would you advise? What would you recommend for developing their career or success? What's the wisdom that you've gained over your years? Maybe in 3 thoughts.
Yeah, I would say. Let me think about this one for a second.
Take your time.
Repeat that question one more time.
Yeah. So the question is, what 3 recommendations would you have to an up-and-coming talent leader who's trying to blaze new trails, maybe take a risk, or just grow their career and help others? What's the best advice you'd give to them?
I think about, right away came to mind a book that I read years ago called Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. If you're familiar with Simon Sinek,
Absolutely.
Leaders Eat Last is a reference to, it's actually a practice in the Marine Corps that I learned very early on, and that is in the chow line when everybody's lining up for lunch. the higher ranks go last because the troops are doing the work at the front and you have to keep them fed. It is to anybody up and coming, or even to those who are already sitting at the top, take care of your people. That's number one. If you take care of your people and you ruthlessly support their success, and you don't take anything for yourself, and you go out of your way to make sure that they are taken care of, and the barriers are broken down to do their jobs, they will go out of their way to be successful on your team. And obviously that makes you look better as a leader. I think of a couple of C's here. It's coaching. It's being a mentor to people. One of the most undervalued things that I think companies and organizations and careerists are not doing is organic mentoring. And I don't mean being connected by the company to somebody else. I mean finding and asking people for advice. And that could be going to somebody junior to you or less experienced than you and asking them for advice. What do I need to be doing? Because what you might find is that you've moved up the ladder so far that maybe you're not in touch with the people on the ground and you need to be. And then finally, I'd say the other C that comes to mind is congratulate or recognize.
I love that. That.
Recognition goes a very long way in simply, especially it's recognition in public, right? It's taking to LinkedIn or taking to the whole team on a 200-person team call and giving somebody kudos for something that they did. It doesn't cost anything. It is, in terms of effort, it takes a minute to recognize somebody, but it can mean the world to somebody who is also climbing that ladder. So,
yes, I so agree with you. A smile goes a mile.
Right.
A thank you is worth a ton. It costs you nothing, and all too often we hold that back for all the wrong reasons.
Right.
Oh,
yep.
So one more question, and then I want to summarize, which is, of all the military leaders that you know and have studied, if you would tell a corporate executive, you know what, read this person's book, or the person I have the highest respect for that really is that corporate America could learn from, who would you recommend?
I would say there are so many of them, but I would say right off the top of my head comes to mind Colin Powell.
Colin Powell, okay.
And since Colin Powell, there have been a number of other people. You can just simply read quotes from them sometimes. General McChrystal, General Mattis. But these are people that they have great pieces of advice. But Colin Powell once said something along the lines of, and I'm going to miss the quote, but it was, the moment people stop coming to you with problems, you've stopped being a leader. So it's one of those, it's a testament to, as a leader, you're going to deal with problems. You're going to have to solve issues for people. But he was very much in touch with how the troop on the ground needed to operate. And I think there are a number of other generals and other military leaders down to, they don't have to be executive leaders. They don't have to be generals. There are guys that I know that were sergeants in the Marine Corps that I would say are big influences for me just in the way that they do things, right? So Colin Powell would be the starting point for that.
Wonderful. Thank you. So everyone, Matt Disher on LinkedIn, learn how to help bring in our military veterans. They are tremendously skilled talent. We need to understand what their resume is, and we need to look at them. And Matt's committed his life, and I am thankful to all that you've done. We're all appreciative to know that we're safe because of our military and all of your commitment. So Matt, thanks for being my guest today and sharing this really special perspective and your passion for what you do and of helping of thousands and tens of thousands around the nation and even around the world. Thanks for being with us.
Of course. Thank you, Russell.
So let's summarize what Matt shared. The first thing that is how well structured the military is, and most importantly, that structure helps teams perform. And that military personnel coming out, they're used to a structure and know how to lead through influence. On the other hand, we in corporate America have to understand and be able to interpret their role, their job, and look beyond the alphabet soup of what they did and look underneath the fact of their ability to lead through influence, not by always command, even though that is in the military. I think the second thing and most important thing is Matt offers a program for any business to learn how to recruit and onboard and train and develop our military talent. There's 150,000 military people, veterans every year looking for work and needing work, and their military spouses. And so I think it's imperative for every chief people officer to be including military as part of the recruitment strategy, given the fact that there's the high diversity and interest and educational capabilities that audience has to offer. I think the third thing that Matt took away, which is read Colin Powell. He's got beautiful quotes, and he also provided some other generals to learn from, because the one thing the military has is clarity of alignment between mission, goal, strategy, tactic, and implementation. The other aspect that Matt brought up is that it's the leader's job to knock down the roadblocks, to sit arm in arm, crawl in the dirt with their team to build trust. And it is only from the trust that we gain the inspiration, the influence, and passion to inspire a team to all work together to accomplish the mission. So again, I want to remind everyone that the special leadership gift is available at the Kern and Partners website. It's about the magnificent manager talent advantage. It's our e-guide. It's rich and full of information about the 12 secrets to create a high-performing team that drive engagement, increase retention, sales, and profits. So go visit kernandpartners.com and get and download the content that I think will help give you more skills, more information, and improve your organization and the talent and the outputs that you generate. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Trailblazing Leaders Podcast. If you want to check out more episodes, you're going to find them on all major streaming platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course, YouTube. The podcast is also available at our website at kernandpartners.com. Thank you for being with us today, and we'll see you on our next episode.